Good morning. Today is Sunday of the 32nd week in Ordinary Time, and our Gospel is taken from the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 12, verses 38 through 44. In the course of his teaching, Jesus said to the crowds, "Beware of the scribes who like to go around in long robes and accept greetings in the marketplaces, seats of honor in synagogues, and places of honor at banquets. They devour the houses of widows, and as a pretext recite lengthy prayers. They will receive a very severe condemnation." He sat down opposite the treasury and observed how the crowd put money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow also came and put in 2 small coins worth a few cents. Calling his disciples to himself, he said to them, "Amen, I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all the other contributors to the treasury. For they have all contributed from their surplus wealth, but she from her poverty has contributed all she had, her whole livelihood." Today's gospel is quite well known to us. We've heard it many times, the story of the poor widow who put in 2 small coins, and Jesus praised her for it. In fact, he says that she put in more than all the rest. So there's a few things we can consider in today's gospel. In first place, let's consider the pride of the Pharisees, the scribes and Pharisees. Jesus says at the beginning of today's gospel, "Beware of the scribes," because they go around in long robes and accept greetings in the marketplaces, seats of honor in synagogues, places of honor in banquets. So they are always looking for honor. They're always looking for praise from everyone else. And the things that they would do, the good things they would do, they did them in order to be praised by other people, in order to be seen by others, and so that everyone would be like, "Wow, he's so righteous, he's so just, so holy." So that's the first lesson Christ wants to give us. We are supposed to do our good deeds for God alone, like so that only God will see them. And that's why he says, he says in another part of the gospel, "Let not your left hand know what your right hand doeth." In other words, don't go around telling people about the things you've done and the good and your virtuous actions, and don't even do them, so that people will see you, but only for God. So be willing to do things in secret, do things in hiding, only for God. It's funny, but Saint Therese of the Child Jesus, she writes, that this idea of doing things only for God, or rather, we should rather say doing things in a hidden way, in a secret way, and this desire to be kind of unknown was so strong in her that she would even try to hide things from Jesus. Like she would do good deeds and hope even that Jesus himself wouldn't find out about them. Like, I mean, obviously this is an impossibility, but what she's trying to get at is this idea that she does not want to be rewarded for her good deeds. She just wants to do them out of love. So she doesn't want everyone to know, or even God to know in a way, but she just wants to do them because she loves God. So that's the first lesson for today. And this poor widow, really, she gives us the example, because when she goes into the temple to give her offering, she doesn't make a big deal out of it. I mean, she was giving everything she had, but she just goes in there quietly and places these 2 small coins there in the treasury, to the point that probably nobody noticed. But Jesus noticed, because he notices these small hidden things that we do for him. Now, the second lesson is about how we give. So Christ says that she gave more than everyone else. Now, keep in mind, this is not supposed to be a reproach or a judgment on those who gave large sums. Certainly, we shouldn't say that Christ is condemning that. Not at all. On the contrary, I mean, God has precisely given to some people, uh, giving them wealth and abundant wealth precisely for that end, so that they will be generous in giving. In other words, so that they will give large sums, like the gospel says, large sums. That's why God made rich people. I mean, that's the reason. He gave people earthly blessings so that they would shower those blessings upon the poor. But at the same time, you don't have to be rich to do great things for God. You have to be generous. And generosity is not something that depends on your wealth. It depends on your will, on what you want to give. So those who give that what is most meaningful are those who are most generous. Those who give what's closest to your heart are those who are most generous. So, for example, a young lady who turns 18 years old, and she is mature. She is intelligent. She is healthy. She is strong-willed, determined, has all these qualities. She could have a lot of success in the world, and she decides to enter the convent. This young woman has given everything, and her offering is much greater than the offering of a rich man or a rich person who has given $1 million, for example. Her offering is much greater. In fact, the offering of the religious life in particular is really the greatest offering that we can make to God. Because when we become a religious, when we consecrate ourselves to God in that way, we give him everything. We give him our will, we give him our body, we give him our goods through the vows of obedience, of chastity, and of poverty. So those people really, I mean, religious and consecrated people are really the ones who have given the most to God. Now, certainly that doesn't mean that others have not given anything to God or anything like that. But this is one of the reasons why the religious life is really considered and ought to be considered by all Catholics as a higher vocation and a more perfect state of life. And that is not to no detriment to the married life or the single life, for example. It doesn't take away its value, because the married life has great value, as does the single life consecrated to God. But certainly the value of the religious life is higher, because it is a fuller consecration and because you give everything to God as a religious. So now that can be extended, this idea of being generous to God by giving him what is most dear to us, that can be extended to all aspects of life. For example, people want to do penance, okay? People want to become holier, they want to do penance, and so they start fasting, for example. And it's really not very hard for them to fast. But when it comes to denying their will, it's very hard, and they don't do that. Or when it comes to, for example, limiting their time on TV, limiting their time on their phones, which is hard for them, they don't do that. You see, so they focus on giving what's easy to give, in a way, and they don't give what's hard to give. And that's exactly what Christ is talking about. Give what's hard to give. Give when it's hard to give, and your gift will be of much greater value in the eyes of God. So those are the things we should work on. Saint Therese of Lisieux, of Therese of the Little Child Jesus, she also speaks about this. She says that when she entered the convent, she wasn't allowed to do any kind of physical penance or like anything remarkable. And she says, but it was okay, because my mortification, my penance for Jesus was precisely the denying of my will, which is the hardest thing to do, and it is the most profitable thing to do for our spiritual life. So let's consider what we offer to God, what we give to God, and if it's something that we're comfortable with. And if we're comfortable with it, well, then let's consider giving to God, something, that's less comfortable and that's harder to give, even if it's smaller. It doesn't matter if it's smaller, but if it's bigger to you, if it's more important to you, then it could be the smallest thing in the world. But that is the most valuable thing that you can give to God, because it's close to your heart, because it's important to you, because it's like what you depend on, or what you or what you love, or whatever it may be. Like this widow, she gave all she had, says the gospel. She contributed all she had from her poverty. So from the poverty of your heart and those little things that we love and that we're attached to, those are the things that if we give them, we gain great merit in God's eyes. Let us ask this grace from the Blessed Virgin Mary on this Sunday, that we may, in first place, do all our good deeds for God alone, and not seeking any praise or reward or consolation from humans. And in second place, that we may learn to give what the important things, even if they're small, the things that we're attached to, the things that we love, give them to Jesus and merit to receive from him an eternal reward. Amen.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding, and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.